Okay, going live. Okay, hi there, everybody. This is Lisa Michaels. Back on the subject of the fraudulent election for U.S. Senate in the state of Alabama. On my previous video on this topic, I misstated. I'm dyslexic, so anyway, it was on December 12th, 2017 that this travesty of justice occurred. I have been studying elections for many years, since 2000, when I first noticed that there was election fraud, and there is so much election fraud in this thing. They were so desperate to prevent an honest man from entering the hallowed halls of Congress in the United States Senate, that they, first of all, besmirched his reputation, lied about him, and completely complicit in the news media. They should be sued for defamation of character. Judge Dormore should. There's so many lawsuits. The citizens of Alabama have been poorly treated. They have had their elections stolen from them, and they have had their elections stolen from them several ways. First of all, what I've learned from my many years of studying this and filing a lawsuit and fighting a lawsuit, an entire day long lawsuit against the Secretary of State of Oregon, they use these machines. These machines were created by a fellow by the name of Chuck Hagel. Chuck Hagel is this bureaucrat guy. He lived in Washington, D.C., and apparently the left sent him back to his home state of Nebraska in the 90s so he could build this new electronic voting machine company. So then he wanted to test it out. Nobody knew who the heck Chuck Hagel was, except for his business partner, who became his treasurer. So he runs for the United States Senate. It's like, this wasn't the United States Senate. Anyway, against the ex-governor, who was very, very popular. So popular, in fact, that he got 2 terms. He got term limited out. So he decided to run for U.S. Senate. Now, who do you think, just on the face of it, is going to win? Somebody that nobody knows who he is, been out of the state for 20 years, and he's going to win? Or is it going to be the guy who's the former governor, who everybody knows? If you know anything about marketing, then you know the person with the most name recognition is the one that's going to win. Oh, no. Once he developed all his election machines and he put them throughout the entire state of Nebraska, oh no, it was no name. Nobody knew who he was. Chuck Hagel wins. So yes, he's figured out how to fix the elections using these voting machines. Then he trots them out all across the country. And those are the election machines that they have in the state of all over the country, the majority company that does it. And what do we know about all computers? All computers can and are hacked, are hackable. You can hack them. Okay? So I figured out how they did it in Oregon. In Oregon, you have paper ballot. Then they run them through these scanners, these ES&S scanners, which is Chuck Hagel's machine company that he made back in the 90s. They renamed it, and you can know the whole shenanigans. It involves Hewlett Packard. It involves programmers that created it and became multi-millionaires. Sold it out to Ross Perot's EDS. And then EDS was bought by Hewlett Packard soon after. They paid just a few $100,000, or maybe $300 million. I can't remember. Anyway, it was a lot of money. So these 2 brothers, these 2 computer programmers from Chicago, go to Oregon, and they figure out how to do the statewide voter database. Anyway, it's all a big can of worms. It's just like making sausage. You don't really want to know exactly how it's made, but it's pretty involved. It's systemic, and they can rig and are rigging all the elections, and they're complicit with the news media. I know this because I've been watching, like I did in my last video. If you saw my last video, and you go to my website, my blog, conservativelisa.blogspot.com, you'll see my screenshots. It shows as Roy Moore's opponent, Doug Jones, is saying his acceptance speech on the Secretary of State's website. Roy Moore is up by over 6,000 votes. And the guy is already saying his acceptance speech. And he's behind. Then a half an hour later, all of a sudden, he's up again. And and this is the telltale thing. If you watched on election night on December 12th, 2017, and you watched that election, you could see the news media on Fox News is who I was watching. They're saying, oh, well, it's going back and forth and looks like it'd be close. It looks like we're going to be able to call it soon. It looks like it's going to be for Doug Jones. And you're like, what is that person who's talking to her ear? Who is talking to this woman who's on the Fox News and those guys saying that it's going to be Doug Jones? Of course it's not going to be Doug Jones. Doug Jones has never even been ahead on their own little numbers that are underneath the screen. Never. But yet they're saying it's going back and forth. It wasn't going back and forth. There's no going back and forth at all. The only time it was going back and forth was after the guy got called. They called it for him when he had like 600 votes more. And then it goes back and forth. That's the only time it went back and forth. And so the news media knew that he was supposed to win in advance. Just like they thought they knew that Hillary was going to win until they got shut down. So the news media is complicit with it. They did it in Oregon. If you want to watch that video, I talked about it in the last one, Multnomah County. They actually, to keep the Hispanics on the Democrat boat, they lied. And they reported that they gave all the Republican candidate Lopez's votes to the Libertarian candidate who never got above single digits, so that it would look like the Democrat beat an Anglo-named person, Lawrence, instead of the Democrat who they rigged the election for, to beat Lopez, because the Hispanics were real excited to vote for Lopez. They were calling up in tears. She gave out her phone number on Hispanic radio stations. We don't understand why you didn't win. We all voted for you. It's just been going on, and I'm fed up with it. It's real simple. I'm going to show you some other videos on my television. I'm not going to sorry about this, on my YouTube thing, right? That I'm live on that I'm doing right now. You'll have to go to these websites. I'll show them to you. I'll turn my thing around and let you see it. But okay, first I'm going to start with, let's see, there is hello, that one. Can you see that guy? It's on the Alex Jones channel. Yes, I know if you don't like Alex Jones, I'm sorry. He's a bit brash, but he does have a lot of honest to goodness reporting that you're not going to find in other places. So this is what he has to say. He went over this guy. It says Roy Moore proves election fraud in Alabama Senate race, and how he proved it was with his lawsuit, which apparently the crooked attorney, the Secretary of State who runs all the elections in each state, it's the Secretary of State's job to run the elections. And he just ignored it. Sorry, Doug Jones won. I told you Doug Jones won. Doug Jones won. Don't look behind the curtain. Nothing to see here. Move along, move along, move along. We're going to certify it. Oh, I don't care. I don't care. Probably didn't even look at this lawsuit. But this lawsuit needs to go forward, and if not, they need to get a class action lawsuit. But he went over it all, and it lots of evidence. Lots of evidence. Again, what do we know about computers? They all can be hacked. Why are we allowing our precious vote that it determines the leadership of our country to hackable computers? Why? Are we crazy? Are we crazy? The country of Ireland, years ago, I think in the 90s, decided they give electronic computerized voting a try, and it just lasted one election. They realized how easy it was to fix, and it was just ridiculous that they outlawed electronic voting. So they just on paper. That's what we need to do. We need to have paper ballots and have an even number of Republicans, even number of Democrats working at each one of the polling places. Then at the end of the day, after they've got all the paper ballots, they together, bipartisanly, count all the ballots. Then they seal them in their containers, and then they take them with a secure person, or maybe one security. They have tight security. Maybe they have a body cam or something, and they take it to county elections. Then if anybody has any problems, you can go back and count the paper ballots. It's another reason you know that the Secretary of State of Alabama was in on the fraud, because he was advocating that they destroy the proof that would show unequivocally that they were rigging the elections through the computers. Because in the computers, while it has the paper that flips out in the back, I'm going to show you this other. Let me see. I'm going to show you this other. This is on Fox News. I want to let you listen to this one.
Machines used across the country vulnerable to hacking. One professor decided to find out from. But how technologically savvy do you have to be a hacker to do this? I mean,
you have to be able to write computer programs.
Yep.
Which a lot of people can do.
Sure.
You need to be able to open up this door on the side, which anybody can do, and that's about it.
All right, let's see how it works.
Yeah, you want to show me if I'm voting, what happens, how it goes wrong? You say.
So we have set this machine up. We've infected it with our virus in advance, and we're running a simulated election here between George Washington and Benedict Arnold.
I think I know who I'll vote for.
All right.
Go ahead, pop it in.
I'm on your side.
For you.
Okay.
And just wait.
So when I go to vote at an electronic voting machine, it looks similar. It's just like this.
Just like this.
5% of the country.
Okay, so I say start.
Yes.
Yep. I want George Washington.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, now do next.
All right.
And cast ballot.
And I see that has registered my vote
That's
correctly.
right.
George Washington. I'd like to cast my ballot. Very simple.
All right. Now, I'm going to vote.
Just a minute.
All right, so every person gets a different voter
This is a
access
video
card.
from
All
2008.
Takes a minute.
Loading base. All right, start. I'm voting for George Washington. Okay, cast ballot.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Now I'm going to cast a third vote, also for George Washington.
All right. Well, we're going to watch just to make sure.
All right. Watch very carefully.
Loading ballot. You're starting. You're voting for George Washington. Okay, good enough. And then you cast your ballot.
So there should be 3 votes for George Washington.
3 votes for George
What are we going to
Washington,
see?
yes.
But because you have infected this machine with a virus, perhaps George Washington will not be the winner.
That's right.
All right, so now you're putting in the
I'm putting
supervisor
the
card.
supervisor card. Now it's the end of election day. And
Time
I'm
to
the
count
election
the
vote.
votes.
We're going to count the votes.
Yep.
All right, very
Right.
good.
So I stick this in,
Yeah.
and it takes a minute. I need to put in the highly secret pin 1111.
Okay.
there you go.
I think you just accidentally said that out loud. Okay.
Okay, ballot stations.
They've all 3 voted for George Washington.
Okay.
They've all
That's
seen
okay
that
with
George
me.
Washington was
Now
the
I've
person
got
they
to print
voted
the results
for.
on this printer.
Okay, quickly.
Then at the end of the day, they
And
print
the
out a
results.
tally of
So
how
this
many
what
votes were
happens.
cast for George
Inside the
Washington.
machine, it was keeping an electronic record of every vote.
Right.
3 votes for George. But the computer virus went and switched the votes inside the computer's memory. And when you see this result, what you see, look at the tape right here.
Hold it right there, very carefully.
1 vote for George Washington and 2 for Benedict.
So you're saying
my
that hackers would have had to have done this before people voted. They would have had to have infected it with a virus,
Wow.
and then it skews the
Before
results.
election day.
Oh,
Yep.
my goodness.
Anytime before election day.
Ed Felton, professor of computer science at Princeton.
Okay,
thank you
so
very much.
that
By the way,
is-
when we come back, we're going to
I
read
don't know
the
if you can
statement
see
from
that very
Blackwell.
well on
They
your
said
my
the maker of this, they say
my
that
iPad friends, but
information.
they rigged the elections. Hello, McFly. They rigged the elections. Okay? They rigged the elections. Have I told you they rigged the elections? They rigged the elections. So, in any case, I wanted to show you that one, and then there's this one. This is my blog. This is my blog. This is my blog. Here it is. Well, this is one of them. This is my conservative crew. This, oh, look at this sheet. See that? There you go. There's my conservative crew. So, conservativecrew.blogspot.com is where I want to put up next election. I want to get as many people it's all about the primary. We need to get conservatives to run against these liberals in both the Democrat and the Republican Party, because obviously there's not much of a difference. Because you had, I don't know if you had as many or more Republican rhino more haters in that last election rigging the election, and they don't want to get caught. It's probably I'm sure John Merrill, whoever the Secretary of State of Alabama, just doesn't want to get caught, because he thought it was a good idea that when you scan the computer, see they scan it like that, but there's a way to take a picture that they scan the screen when it showed him George Washington, so that you could go in and get the scans from within the machine to see if they're the same as the tally that comes out in the back. See? And he knew that would expose the fraud. So he advocated that a judge would tell all of the county elections to destroy that proof so that you couldn't expose it. So, I mean, we can get into the words. I'm sorry, it's boring if you're not interested in election fraud. I'm way too, people talk about things that they just have too much knowledge about, and your eyes are glazing over about now. Bottom line, we need to go to paper ballots. We need to outlaw computers in any part of the elections. They shouldn't scan it at the county level. They shouldn't scan it you shouldn't have to use them when you go into your polling place. You should just write it on paper, have it counted by people, and take it back there and store it. So if anybody wants to go in for a recount, I've been involved in 4 recounts, and I'm telling you, it's you don't learn much with these stupid computers because they can rig them. We don't want to do that. So anyway, let's see. Okay, so the spokeswoman, she's got some good things to say. She went on the fake news network, corrupt news network, CNN, and of course, as you know, when they're at fault, the CNN people or the fake stream news media constantly interrupts. It's just annoying.
Because this is not about the candidates. It's not about whether it's Republican or Democrat. It's about fair and free elections. He said, I got involved in election integrity because I felt that Bernie Sanders was being cheated. And so this is not about Republican or Democrat.
Okay,
it's about fair and free election.
There's another expert that you rely on in this court filing named James Condit Jr. He is somebody who has spoken about Zionist control of world politics, an alleged Israeli role.
Oh my gosh! See, then they start obfuscating with
nobody has a chance to look at
say
this.
Instead of talking about the issues.
That's why I think people should be
this is it. Instead of talking about the issues, what they talk about is ancillary things to get the whole racist. He's a kook. He's a conspiracy theorist. Okay, so anybody who's a conspiracy theorist means that they believe in a conspiracy. Okay, right? Now, what is a conspiracy? It's when a group of people get together and do something they probably shouldn't be doing, and secret, and they do something. So, if a whole bunch of people got together and put out ads, there's ads, is one of the things. There's ads in neighboring states asking people to come to Alabama and vote against Roy Moore after they lied about him and said he was a child molester. And there's a video of a guy who bragged about voting more than once. There's another video about a guy who says, me and my buddies, we all came from all over the country to vote and canvass for our boy, and we got him elected. This is so corrupt. I mean, voter ID, only on election day, no early voting, and on paper. Get rid of, outlaw computers. That's all there is to it. So anyway, this guy, so she had some good points. Let me see if I can get her talking, because they don't let her talk much.
334-242-7200. If you want fair and free elections, don't certify what 3 independent experts, and I'm not listing John Condit as one of them, by the way, which I think he is an expert on voting machines, and what he says is valid. But on the issue of what 3 independent experts says, that there is fraud enough in just one county to turn this thing around. And if I was Secretary of State, boy, I'd like to get to the bottom of it, no matter who it is that I supported. Because here's the thing that Governor Ivey needs to know. She's up for a re-election too, and there's 650,000 people who are watching this very closely, what they do right now. And if they certify what has been proven by 3 independent experts that says this is fraudulent enough to overturn this entire election, then they're going to be accountable at the voting booth. And I wouldn't want to be. And by the way, if they can steal the election from Roy Moore, Governor Ivey, they can steal it from you. Or Secretary of State Merrill, it can happen to you. That's why voter integrity matters no matter where you stand.
I just want to say, for the record, that I mentioned one of your experts, John Condit, has said things like
you brought this up
there's Zionist
100 times.
control.
You know
but I want
to
just say for the record that it was Richard Charnon who has said that there is mathematical proof that he has found that the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh my gosh! See, she changes it to that.
Evidence of 84 pages of experts that have said just one county. We found 20 precincts in Jefferson County. By the way, we found the analysts have done the algorithms, and they know exactly what districts they targeted, and they know exactly what they did. The chances that this was not fraud, 1 in 15 billion.
So 1 in 15 billion. It's not fraud. 1 in 15 billion. So check out. Watch that. Watch this video. CNN. I don't normally recommend anything from CNN, but or just watch that expert. I guess she's on a couple of times. Then this is the one on Alex Jones. This guy goes through. He goes through all of the website. All of the lawsuit. All the reasons why they should not certify it, and they should have investigated the election fraud. And John Merrill just said, no way, too bad, so sad. I'm going to commit fraud. I'm going to facilitate fraud. I'm going to continue the fraud, which means this fraud, if this is not stopped by President Bush. President Bush. Oh, God. By President Trump and his vice president, who's supposed to be running a council to investigate election fraud. I don't know what he's got going. I tried to get my attorney who fought the lawsuit against Secretary of State Kate Brown, who's now Governor Kate Brown, Michaels versus Brown, to prevent them from being able to facilitate more fraud, because we knew how they were doing it. They were just simply taking the extra leftover ballots, and after the election, they'd tell you whatever they wanted the results to be on election night, and then they keep the leftover blank ballots and then fill them in to make sure it matches the count they said, the bogus count they said on election night. And then in the case of Lopez, they didn't even give her they never put her name on the screen. She's the Republican nominee, got like 23% of the vote. Second place. She wasn't even put on the screen because they were so afraid of alienating. This is all manipulation. Okay, we manipulate the news, we manipulate what you hear, we lie about the candidates, and then we rig the elections and we bust people in, we rig the machines. I've had it with this whole thing. I want to be one vote for one person who actually lives in the residence that they say they live at, and they only vote once, they're above the age of 18, and they're not a felon. And they vote only on election day. Unless they have proof, like they're at college or they're in the military, that they're not going to be able to make the election and they have to do it by mail, or if they're an invalid or older person. There's some but you'd have very specific ones, and they need to show proof that they need that. So that's what we got to do. So anyway, here's what this guy said.
Minutes to go through this entire lawsuit to find the little bits that I thought were relevant to voter fraud. And there seems to be a lot of evidence here. It needs to be investigated. I can't say it enough.
If you are receiving this transmission.
Here, and now it gets into the discrepancies in the votes.
Here's what this guy said.
Here it is. In the speed of light, poll workers said they were presented with identifications from other states, and certain precinct directors allowed such out-of-state persons to vote. These additional steps should have been taken. Okay, so we do have that video. Let's go ahead and play that video now, because this has to do with the man. This is live from Fox News. I think it was the day after the election.
Because we came here all the way from different parts of the country as part of our fellowship, and all of us pitched in to vote and canvass together, and we got our boy elected.
Pitched in to vote and canvass together. There it is.
And still, this crooked Secretary of State calls himself a Republican in Alabama, still certified the race for the guy who rigged it. It's just outrageous.
There will be known as the anomalous precincts. The percentage of votes for individuals that were cast for Roy Moore relative to the percentage of straight party line
votes. That gets a little bit into the minutia.
Highway 31, a super PAC falsely represented to the public that your vote is public record, and your community will know whether you voted or not.
Your vote is public record, but they don't know who you voted for.
You're going to put in an accused child molester.
So that's not it at all.
The curve would suggest, which translates to more than a 26,000 vote loss relative to his opponent. My calculations put the probability of distribution at less than 1 in 15 billion.
1 in 15 billion.
All right, there's his signed affidavit.
Yeah, so 1 in 15 billion. So now I want to show you, let's see, history of election fraud. This is my video that has been censored for, I don't know, when did I do this video? I did this video after all my investigation. For 13 years, I've been investigating it, and this is what I'm just going to show you the open. You can watch them. I've got a whole list, years of voter fraud, and it's like one of those video lists, so if you want to find it. But this one's the first one, and they won't let it go above 4,000 whatever. But my last one video that I did on Roy Moore is now up to 30-something thousand. I'm like, what's YouTube doing? I guess that one slipped through the cracks of their censorship, but or maybe a lot more people have watched it.
Citizens appear to be suicidal when it comes to throwing out bad leaders and electing good ones. Ever wonder why, no matter how good a candidate's campaign, no matter how much money they raise, nor how well qualified they are for the position, Republicans almost always lose? The good news is you're not that out of step with your neighbors. The reason voting trends have shifted so dramatically to the left in the past 20 years is because of vote by mail. and the corrupt election system forced on our own county clerks after Congress enacted the Help America Vote Act. Stalin said that it's not the people who vote that count, it's the people who count the votes. Much like Soviet centralized government, our elections have become centralized so that a small group of government officials may control the results of our elections. Here is how I believe it works after investigating this issue for the past 13 years. First of all, for the past 35 years or so, we the people have self-identified as conservative over liberal by 2-to-1. So, if liberals wish to win any elections, they must necessarily fix the outcome of those elections if they wish to win. Next, we look at the evolution of our voting patterns since the 1980s. We see that more and more communities have all but switched to the convenience of absentee or vote by mail balloting.
Okay.
Oregon's current and former governor, John Kitzhaber.
Disgraced former governor, and disgraced former governor. He had thrown out of office. His corruption caught up with him. This is really bad. I mean, okay, in 2004, I found that there was lots of they had a whole investigation and indictments on 4 groups that they realized were committing election fraud. In 2004, when Ohio was the big state that everybody wanted. And it was this group I never heard of before, which is SEIU, Service Employees International Union. And they wear purple shirts, and they are very active in rigging the elections and going out and canvassing and pretending like they really rah support the liberal Democrat, who they probably haven't even met, but they're getting paid big bucks. And then Project Vote and Acorn, which everybody knows is a major rigger of elections, and it's where Barack Obama cut his teeth on election fraud. The whole thing is election fraud. Everything comes down to election fraud. If we don't stop it, then we're never going to have decent ones. We really lucked out because the White Hats helped stop the election fraud when we got President Trump in there. But if he doesn't stop this, then it's going to continue. And I hate to say it. I moved to Kansas where I think it's, I thought it was, we had fair elections. We don't have fair elections there. And as a matter of fact, it's it gets to a certain extent almost more insidious because at least in Oregon, I knew who was a Republican, who was a Democrat. We have in Kansas and then probably in Alabama, obviously, from the poor way in which they treated Judge Roy Moore, who differed in their liberal, moderate perspective. We have Republicans Democrats, liberals, dressed up like Republicans in states where it's more popular to be a Republican than it is to be a Democrat. And then they just continue rigging things. So the corruption just it's just corrosive. They have absolutely, power elite has absolutely no interest. It's an oxymoron for anybody who has any sort of integrity to be an elected office. The purpose of a politician is to manipulate them and get them to do what the power elite wants them to do. And they do this by blackmailing them and bribing them. And I'm convinced most of Congress is that way, unfortunately. And that's why they're acting that way. I think Donald Trump should probably find out whatever it is they're being blackmailed with, call them into the White House, have a little powwow, and say, hey, look, I know this, that, and the other thing, and I'm willing to look the other way as long as you're willing to play ball. But I do think that your next election, you should just decide to retire. But until then, we'll just keep it between you and me. But you need to start playing ball with me so that we can make America great again. You have that as your legacy, and then you retire. Okay? Are we clear on that? So, anyway, there's lots of videos on here. Please, again, check out my blog, conservativelisa.blogspot.com. or conservativecrew.blogspot.com. That's the one where I need to get. If you want to submit yourself and you're running in a seat for the primary against an incumbent, especially, or if you're just running, we need to if you're running in one party, try to find somebody else who's conservative to run in the other party primary. So the goal is to win for the country, not to get your own ego going. If you're conservative, read my website. If you agree what I have to say, send me your pic, and you're running, you filed to run, send me your picture, a quote, and what your website address, and who you're running to replace. The person, whoever's in it right now, whether they're Democrat in the other party or not, say you're running, Joe Schmo is running to replace Joe Jones. Or Doug Jones. Anyway. Oh, and another thing, if for some reason this ever reaches Roy Moore, I'd be more than happy to help you out with this. There's very few people that have done the kind of level of research that I've done on this topic, and I don't think there's anybody in the whole country who's ever sued the Secretary of the State of over election integrity before the election, not just because they wanted to, like he just did with the lawsuit to stop the certification. In any case, but yeah, to give him a, I just can't stand. Have a blessed day, and God loves you. He loves you so much you can't even fathom how much Jesus loves you. So go out and read his book. It's great. It's got hidden codes in it. And it is the most fascinating book. I'm not much of a reader. I like to listen to audiobooks, so I like the audio app, but it's great. Check it out. We're just down here for a really short period of time, and then we got eternity. And everybody's got an eternity. You're going to be in the best possible place you can even imagine. Unimaginably wonderful, peaceful, great. Or the really most opposite, horrible place. So let's go for the good place and be kind and loving and thoughtful with other people, and forgive everybody of all the bad things that they've done, and ask for forgiveness, and tell Jesus you want him to run your railroad. So love y'all. Take care.